So, we are back at it again with episode 2 of The Offering, and it is my unique pleasure and honor to welcome my second guest, the wife of my first guest. She's also an advocate, she's a scientist, she is finna be basically a doctor. Like, she is like phenomenal in almost everything, because we're not perfect, but she's phenomenal in almost everything her hand touches. And speaking of her hand touching things, she's a planter. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. But however, I want y'all to give a great warm welcome to Jasmine Marshall. Hello,
Excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So before we get into this phenomenal chess match that we're gonna have, the offering, of course, as always, I wanted to say we're gonna be real. But before we even get into that, you brought some stuff.
I brought gifts.
You brought gifts for us today.
Gifts.
So this is your offering to the offering today. So
Yes.
Can you explain to us what did you bring today?
So it is National Plant a Flower Day. I started celebrating it last year, but I'm excited to celebrate it again. And I brought some potting cups, and we're gonna plant some marigolds. And I was very intentional about the seed that I brought. I actually harvested these seeds from older flowers, and I wrote on the cup the date I harvested them, and they are from October 5th, 2023.
Okay.
So, they have stood the test of time, and they're still going to be fruitful and produce. I'm just excited because, marigolds are really special.
Yeah.
We're going to get all into that, but we're going to plant some marigolds. So, all you have to do, I already have enough soil in there. So, all you have to do is just make a little indent.
Okay.
And it's actually beneficial for you to, get your hands and feet in soil. It does something to your serotonin. It boosts your mood.
So, when people say go outside and touch some grass, they actually mean you should touch some grass. You kind of depressed.
There's a certain bacteria that's in soil, and when we breathe it in and are exposed to it, it does something to our serotonin.
Okay.
This is legit. So we're gonna make a little indentation.
Okay.
And then you're gonna sprinkle a couple seeds. I always do 2 or 3. Yes. I always do 2 or 3 in case one doesn't pop up. But some seeds just don't pop up.
Yeah.
They just stay a seed, and that was.
Not everything you plant is gonna bear fruit, but that's okay because the things that do, they're gonna produce a good harvest.
And seeds are still beneficial because birds eat seeds.
Come on.
Even though they don't go the whole way, they have a purpose.
Yeah. So you are on Facebook, Butterfly Blogs, right? Shout out to Butterfly Blogs. Y'all should go follow her. Kind of walk us through why you started to do that. Kind of what was your desire behind starting something like that?
Okay, so I had the idea to do a blog in 2018. One of my church members, she was a blogger and also a graphic designer.
Okay.
So she had did a class called Birthing Bloggers that she was into church, so that was the whole thing. So she was imparting us with not only her knowledge, but she was birthing bloggers. So I didn't go in person because I think I had something to do at school with my program. So I watched virtually somewhere and still just gathered whatever nuggets I could. And I would just support her through the years. And eventually when I had the money to start it in 2021, I started the blog. It had nothing to do with nature then. I just like butterflies. So in a way, I'm the butterfly and I'm blogging. So
why am I just not noticing your hat?
Yeah.
I see it. Okay, I see the vision. I see it.
I have so much insect stuff. I'm building a collection. That's what people buy me.
Yeah, you're like the African American Miss Frizzle.
Yeah, literally.
That's
I accept it. I love it.
Cool. So as we continue to dive deeper into what you have to offer for us today, which is blind faith. And that right there, I just felt it in my knees. That's a heavy topic.
It's heavy.
That is a heavy topic.
And I'm still walking it. It's something else.
Yeah. So you have the clear pieces. Your pieces are going to go first. Are you familiar with the game of chess? Do you need me to teach you?
Because I know chess.
You know chess.
It's been a minute, but I know what I'm doing.
So kind of in a sense, the same thing with blind faith is in this moment, you're probably going to need some assistance to get you through like what you're supposed to be going. And blind faith can feel like that in the same sense as well,
Yeah.
to where you may not know exactly where you're going, but you know the destination in which you want to reach. Like the ultimate game, the ultimate purpose of chess is to basically beat your opponent to get a checkmate. And then, you know, as we plant things in life, the ultimate point of planting seeds is to produce a fruit. So like all of this is going to flow in together. So we're going to start very simple. It's cool. We don't even have to play a real game. This can be just a teaching lesson for today. And so the pieces that you have in front, they're called pawns. You have 8 of them. And pawns are actually one of my favorite pieces because they start off simple. They're the weakest piece in the entire game. However, they have the potential to turn into the strongest piece in the entire game.
And that's the queen.
That's the queen. Absolutely. Shout out to the queens.
I see what you did there.
Yes. However, they have to make it through the other side. They got to go through some stuff. They got to go through the battle. They got to make it to where the point is.
And it's probably like a slow process.
It's a very slow process because at the end of the day, a pawn in its very first move, it can move 2 steps. And see, sometimes faith, your very first move feels like the biggest step you will absolutely take.
Absolutely.
But then after that, it's 1 step at a time. And so you wanted to come today bringing about blind faith. And so starting it off, what was that like first monumentum step that you just took that just kind of kickstarted your whole, in a sense, faith process?
Okay, so I'll relate it to today. Like, normally I don't start my gardens until like June, July, which is typically like late for a gardener. But it's been a process for me. This is the earliest I've started a garden. And usually it takes me a minute to figure out, okay, what plants do I want beside each other? Like, do I want to do multiple of this plant? Do I want to mix it up? Like, it's so much to decide, and that overwhelms me. Like, the first step is always the hardest step because you have to figure all that out. But really, you don't. And that's what I realized today, because today I needed a tiller to bust up soil, because usually seedlings, they can't break through soil that's been compacted by like a bunch of rain, a bunch of people stepping on it. Like, you need to break up that old soil, and I didn't have that. So I started in pots.
Okay.
And I just threw whatever out, like whatever seeds I got my hands on, I just threw it out. I just needed to start, and I'll figure out the rest later. And that's much like what blind faith is, because when I started as a blogger, I didn't really have a direction. I was talking about relationship stuff, talking about stuff at work, just whatever inspired me. But then I figured out my direction years later. But I had to initially walk that out and just like exercise blogging in general before I figured out a direction and narrowed it down. And that's much like what it is with gardening. I'll throw these seeds down, some may pop up, some won't. And then I might have like 3 pop up in one pot, and I gotta spread them out. Like, you'll figure it out as you go. You don't know until the seeds pop up.
But starting is always kind of like the scariest thing. And like, even whenever it comes down to the game of chess, like, your first move matters. And like how you start kind of determines how the game is going to be played. And so it's like, in chess, it's called the openers. And so it's like, I want to say the openers are like the first like 2 to 5 moves that you make, because it sets up the dynamic of how the game is going to be played. And so there's many different type of openers in the game, but the point is, well, at least how I like to play, is I like to have my pieces kind of just like in the middle, because if you have a strong center, everything else can be built from that. And so as you continue to just like make pieces, you gotta like look at your opponent to see like, okay, how they moving, because this piece I may want to move it like, so you know, I put this piece right here. You may want to put this piece right here. So now I have to protect this piece. And so it's just a constant like back and forth of who's going to do what move. And then I have to think about the moves that you may potentially make, but then on top of the moves that I personally want to make. And I feel like sometimes faith is like that, in the sense to where it's just like, it's not just about you. It's not like you just moving how you want to move. You kind of have to, in a sense, cater to the environment that you find yourself in. And faith grows as much as plants do. Faith grows in a positive environment, and we have to allow ourselves to be planted in those good environments to where faith can be prosperous and faith can grow. And so, how would you say, like, blind faith, like, what, how does blind faith produce good fruit?
How does blind faith produce good fruit? I would say when you have blind faith, you have to be open to whatever environment you're in at that time. I had the thought earlier that you should leave an impact wherever you are.
Yeah.
One of my most frustrating things, and I'll move because we ain't made that one move.
No, it's cool. We just learned it. We learned it.
But my most frustrating thing as a gardener is whenever I had to move a garden. Like whenever I would get something good and established and I would either move houses or whatever the case may be, like I felt like either the plants wouldn't survive the move or I wouldn't see the same butterflies anymore. Like I would just panic. And that wasn't always the case. Like sometimes the environment the plant starts in is not the one that's going to be able to finish in if you want it to thrive.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you do have to spread plants out or you do have to move them or you have to adjust the soil they're in with different like nutrients and stuff. So you have to be open to just making an impact with the environment you're in, but also where you're going to go next.
Yeah.
Like because you don't know what the ending destination is going to be, just be the good person that God is calling you to be wherever you are, so that you're still fulfilling your calling, and you're not just waiting on the end. You're still like appreciating the journey as well.
Yeah, and I think something that like really needs to be talked about more so is like the beginning stages of like planting seeds is like that's a lonely stage. Like we just got finished putting the seeds in the soil. And you covered it, and so now the seeds are in a dark place. Most likely, whenever you plant seeds, you kind of put them individually in there. You put multiple though, but those are like smaller seeds.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like the larger seeds, like they're planted by themselves,
Right?
And so
intentionally,
they have to be by themselves because if you were to plant them too close to another seed, like they would kind of take away from each other.
They would suffocate each other.
They'll suffocate each other. And so, like, in our faith and our relationship with God, like, whenever we're first starting, like, there's a possibility that you find yourself in a place to where you're just by yourself. Mm-hmm. And you're just, like, isolated, you're alone. It may be a dark place. And it's like, man, the same places where, like, this looks like a burial. Like, you know, you take a coffin, you dig a hole, you put it in the ground, you cover it up. You take a seed, you dig a hole, put it in the ground, you cover it up. Like both of those places are very like dark, lonely places. But if you allow yourself to have the right things on the inside of you, like one of those things are going to produce something. Like the coffin, that body inside is going to decompose. However, with that seed that's on the inside of it, it's going to produce something. And I think it's very important for us as far as just like taking that first step to realize like it may be lonely. Whatever God is calling you to do, whatever like steps that you're having to take, those first initial steps, it may be a lonely process. But remembering that it's just like it's in this pressure because you're covered. Mm-hmm. You're being, in a sense, crushed by the dirt.
You're still being fed.
You're still being fed.
It's uncomfortable.
You're still getting what you need. Mm-hmm. It may not be what you want.
Yeah.
But you're getting what you need. And it's in that position that you're actually being in the process to produce something wonderful. And I think a lot of people, they try to skip over that.
Yeah,
they try to.
It's not glamorous. Yeah. Like everybody's on Instagram showing their big flowers. They feel like they want to take the pictures with the actual flower. Mm-hmm. But you have to realize something is happening right now. Yeah. Like the most important things are happening right now when the roots are developed. Like your flower is only going to be as good as the roots. Yeah. Like even during wintertime when it looks like the plants aren't growing, or when you initially move a plant, you're not going to see the growth above ground. The roots have to reestablish themselves, and that's the most important part of the whole process, but it's not showy. It looks like nothing's happening, but you have to yield to that, and that's uncomfortable.
And I think a lot of times, like, people, they allow themselves to be planted for a certain time, and it's just like, plants take a long time to actually produce something. And we're so used to this microwave society to where it's just like, oh, I prayed this prayer. Like, 3 minutes later, 3 days later, Lord, I need a response right now.
Right.
And so, like, I'm digging my hand in the soil to try to see, like, is something happening now? Okay, I'm going to cover back up. I'm going to come back 2 days later. Is something happening now? And it's just like, I'm constantly doing this process where I'm checking in on this. Just like, like the things that God wants to do on the inside of us, the things that are good for us is going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like that's one of the things why a lot of people don't like blind faith or just like faith in general. It's because like this is gonna take some time. Like the blessing, like right now, my hair just looks crazy right now.
Yeah. Under this hat. I'm with you.
Yeah, I haven't cut my hair since September, and right now it's in the ugly state. And I'm like, it's okay.
You're leaning into it. You're embracing it.
I am. I'm trying so hard, but some days I'm like, cut it off. But like, a lot of people aren't willing to stay in that ugly stage.
Yeah.
And like, I was literally having a conversation today with my siblings. I was like, man, I'm thinking about cutting off my hair. It's like, why? Like, man, it's ugly right now. It's like, I don't want to like, I want it to look like something. I want it to look good. And I think so many times we're trying to rush this faith process. We're trying to rush like the things that God wants to produce on the inside of us. It's like in this place where you're covered, you're alone, all this, like that's where you're getting fed the things that you're going to need whenever you actually do get to that point to where you're starting to see a little bud, you're starting to see flower. Like it's in this stage right here, it's the most important. And like we truly skip over that so many times.
Like, and even when you start to grow, that's not it.
Yeah.
Because most flowers that you see that really look full and pretty, they've been trained. Like if you just let a flower grow, it's gonna go straight up and it's gonna look real. We call it leggy. But if you really want like a full something, you have to trim it so it bushes outward.
So there's some things you got to cut off.
Yes, and you have to cut it off at the right time in the right places so you don't overwhelm the plant.
Yeah.
But you still leave it enough to survive. But like it's intentional cuts at certain times.
Yeah.
When certain things have to go for it to grow in a certain direction.
So you like really, and I can tell because like the last episode, I already told Ant that like he basically a pastor. He just didn't want to accept it. It's okay. You don't got to look at me like that. And like here we are with the pastor's wife bringing a word too. Like man, there's in certain seasons of our life, there's some things we got to cut off.
Yeah,
like
it hurts.
Yeah, man, like.
We can remember way back when the glory days when it was going good.
Yes, Lord, I remember the 6-pack, and now it's just like, I like burgers so much. I don't know, seafood is my weakness. Regardless, I got option. Food gets me off topic so quickly. If you want to like make me just lose my train of thought, please talk about some food. I promise.
Yeah, look, I get you. I get you.
But however, whenever we are allowing ourselves to grow with God, and it's horrible, by the way.
Yeah. I always do like the second pond, not the whole way to kind of like protect each other.
Yeah,
that's my thought.
That is the purpose of what because like if you just leave that one out there by itself and like I was to move right here, you didn't have that piece right there. That's my pond now.
Yeah.
And so like, as much as the plants they have to be planted alone sometimes, even in church, like you still need other things. You still need other individuals with you to protect you from the things that you may be going through.
So on that note, I told you I was very intentional with the marigolds. Mm-hmm. So one of their properties is they are a natural pest repellent. Like they attract the butterflies and the bees, but it's certain bugs you don't want to eat up your actual vegetables. So a lot of people do companion planting with the marigolds. So they'll plant a little flower next to whatever they're growing and they get those benefits of the marigold being there and bringing the butterflies. It's like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Oh man, that's dope. But we were talking about how there are some things that we have to cut off.
Yeah.
It's great that and I definitely want to dive into that later about like who you're planted around is so important.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such a word right there.
And certain plants you can't plant next to each other. They just don't work out. Like I can't think, I'm not a vegetable garden, so I can't like rattle them off, but there are certain plants like you absolutely cannot plant together, and there are certain ones that derive benefits from each other when they are side by side.
Yeah. So you have plants to where as you're planting them and as they're growing, you have to cut them off. Not cut the plant off, but cut certain things off of the plant. And like as Christians, like as we're allowing ourselves to grow into who God has called us to be, as we talked about in the first episode of surrender, like Ant gave a beautiful definition of like abandoning things, but and sometimes it's not even up to us to abandon it, but we have to allow God to cut those things off from us. And it's just like that may be a relationship. That may be a job that you think that you really wanted, maybe a position that you're trying so hard to pursue, a car, ministry, whatever it may be. Like, and God understands because He is the masterful gardener, the masterful planter, however you want to look at it, and He knows what's best for us.
Yeah.
And to
And He even knows like who needs to be next to each other to be like the best they can be, and He knows who to separate for a season. And the thing is, it's all about seasons. Like something can happen in one season, and then something completely different can happen in another season. But you have to yield to that current season.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, we had like the hottest summer that I've ever seen, and like most of my plants are sun loving because they're flowers. But even then, I had plants like, okay, what's going on? Like, I lost a good bit of plants that summer, and it's like you just had to deal with it as a gardener. Like, we tried to like do more mulch and like stuff like that to help out the plants, but like you just had to accept a loss, and you just had to shake back the next season. Like some plants did grow back the next season, but you had to yield to whatever was going on in the environment, and that's just life.
I want us to like really kind of dive into like the cutting off, and it's called like pruning, right? Yeah. Pruning sucks. Like I remember I was in college, and I started to take God seriously, and it's just like the moment I started to do that, like I lost a lot. Like I had recently got out of a relationship. And I was just like, I was completely by myself. I was truly feeling like these plants right now.
Yeah, buried.
Just buried. Like, can I just get some water? Like, just sprinkle something. I just need a sprinkle of Jesus or something. But like, I think the reason why we struggle so much as Christians is because we try to hold on to what God wants us to let go of. And like last year for me, I remember I was just chilling in my apartment, and it was just like a random, just like wave, and like, I just truly just felt like the Lord telling me like, Colin, I need you to die. And it's like that hurt for me to hear because I love myself. Yeah. Like I love who I am, and for Him to say like, hey, what I want to do through you, you can't be there. Like what I want to do for you, you have to get out the way. And it's just like, but like, and it sucks because the people who I interact with, the people at my job, friends, coworkers, whomever, like I'm constantly hearing like, oh, Cody, you're such a good person, you're a nice guy, and all of these things. And so like I'm attributing these things to myself, and then I'm hearing God saying like, hey, that's not what I want for you. Like how you see yourself is not how I want you to be, and you need to let go of you.
So explain it to me some more.
I'm not even gonna say we. I'm gonna speak very specifically. Cullen likes to be in charge. Like I don't like to take control, but I like to be in charge. I like chess. I love chess because the game can function how I want it to function.
Yeah, you're driving the ship.
Yes. And so like if I want to be aggressive, I can be aggressive. If I want to step back and be defensive, I play how I want to be.
Yeah.
And I usually play aggressively because I want you to feel this pressure. I want you to feel scared of playing against me. I want you to second guess all of the moves that you're making. But counter to that, it's just like I'm doing that because I'm in a sense scared of like giving up that control. Because if somebody else is calling the shots, if somebody else is like telling me, hey, do this or do that, like how can like in a sense my hands felt like the best hands.
Yeah.
And so it's just like I had me in my hands. And I had guys saying, hey, give me you. And it's like, but I like and like I was literally I remember this, like it was like February 25th of last year. 24th, it was like 23rd, 24th, 20th, one of those days. And I found myself just like laying on the ground weeping. because I was like, I love me. And it's just like, you have to let go of you. You have to let go of how you think. You have to let go of what you want to do. You have to let go of what you want to be. And just trust that I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah.
And like, that's like, when it comes down to faith, like, that's one of those like churchy words that we like to use so much, of just like, where it lost its meaning.
Yeah.
Um, and like, if you truly look at the definition of faith and like look at the Greek word that they use, I can't tell you the Greek word, but I know what it means in the Greek.
Yeah.
And it means to like put your full weight on something. And so it's just like, whenever you came here today, you sat down in a chair, not an ounce of doubt in your mind. It was just like, you didn't check for the screw or nothing. You was just like, I already know, I have faith that these chairs is going to hold me up. And in the same way, when God is asking us, like, hey, place your faith in me, he's not just saying, like, oh, believe in me. Because, like, the demons say believe in him. And belief is not enough. But to completely put your full weight on him. And it's times, like, I feel like as Christians, we're kind of like, we're interacting with God like this.
Yeah.
To where we're like, I'm still
holding in, one foot out.
Yes. And, like, I'm still holding myself up by my own strength. I'm still holding myself up by what I want to, like, who I am. Like, just in case you fail me, just in case you drop me, I still got me.
Yeah.
And like, that's kind of how I was, to where I was just like, you know, God, I'm for you. Like, you know, I read my Bible. People know I talk about Jesus, all of this stuff, but it's just like, I was still holding a piece of me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, Cullen, in order for you to be who I want you to be, I need all of you. And like, you can't partially plant a plant and expect it to grow.
Yeah. You have to be all in.
You got to be all in. And like, when it comes down to our relationship with God, like, you have to be all in. And I think the reason why a lot of us are disappointed in our faith, or I said I'm stop speaking generally, I think the reason why sometimes I find disappointment in my faith is because those are the moments that I'm not allowing myself to be all in for God.
Yeah.
That I'm still leaning on my own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Lean not on your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all of your ways acknowledge him. Proverbs 3:5-6. And it's just like, that sounds so good to quote.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds, yeah, you know, Cullen don't know everything, but to actually put that in action. To walk through that, lean not on your own understanding. But I feel like I understand this.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that you feel stupid or you think that you're dumb, but I feel like I know this, but I'm trusting in what you know more than me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trusting that you know more than me. And one of my biggest flaws is like, I'm a smart person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for a smart person to submit. Because when you think you know, like, my dad, he was such a prideful person. And he had this saying growing up that I remember to the day that I die. He was like, I'm right until you can prove me wrong. And it's just like, people hear that and it's like, oh, you sound so arrogant. But if I'm right, like, if I'm having a conversation with people, and like most of the conversations that I have with people be like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like, don't get me wrong. When I'm wrong, I admit that I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, I sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to be surrounded by people who are like kind of hyping me up. It's like, yeah, you're right. And then God, like, don't lean on that.
Yeah.
Don't lean on what you think you know.
One of my prayers when I first started was, Lord, keep me humble. And he does that. Mm-hmm. He does a good job. Because every time, respectfully, every time I feel like I get a good traction, I'm like, oh, my blog is popping off, or I'm meeting all these folks. Like, every time I feel like I done made it over that hump, something slows back down. It's like there's still another level to go. And it's like, I can never just get that footing that, like, I can never just have that assurance that it's over and good, because, you know, it keeps me yielded. Yeah. Like, I don't ever just think that I'm good, because I'm not. And I don't need to just be rested in that. I need to be fully yielded to whatever the circumstances is. And circumstances change. Like, you can be good in one season, and the next one, you know, you're going to be struggling. Yeah, but, like, you're going to be sustained through that.
Yeah. And, like, I think it's hard to, like, find that sustaining, that sustainment. Is that even a word? I feel like it sounds like a word.
I feel like it's another word that's close to it that we're looking for.
Do Anyway, like I feel like it's hard to allow yourself to be fully sustained while you're still leaning on your own strength. And like, I love Paul, and if I can, not if, when I find the scripture, I put in a little sidebar, but Paul talks about like I boast in my weakness.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, they don't talk about that. Like allowing yourself, like the seeds right now are like boasting. They're like, hey, I'm not enough. I need the soul. I need the sun. I need the water. The seeds will be very prideful to assume that they can produce everything that's on the inside of them by themselves.
Yeah.
And yet we find ourselves in places and seasons to where it's like, oh, I got this. It's like, bro, where the water at?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
You ain't producing nothing but arrogance. And you just over here thinking that you're good. And like, Paul is like, no. I'm not enough. God, I thank you that I'm not enough. Because as I allow myself to continue to be in remembrance that I'm not enough, your strength is sufficient.
Yeah.
Like your strength strengthens me. If I was to walk in on somebody who's like moving a couch and they're struggling, but they're not asking for, oh, no, I got it. Like, bro, I see you actively struggling, but I'm not going to, force myself to take off your burden that you still want to carry.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to carry it, you're going to carry it. Now, God is a gentleman in that way to where he's not going to force himself to remove any burdens that we're not willing to give him.
Yeah. Like, the seed is great within itself. It does have value, like solo, but it doesn't reach its full potential unless it's connected to that soul.
Yeah.
Until it gets in the right environment, it's not going to be what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I remember earlier you were saying, like, the people at work were complimenting you, and God was just telling you to not even, like, get lost in that.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things with flower gardening is whenever you're trying to propagate a plant, that's when you're trying to clone it in water.
Okay.
Like, you can, yeah.
Over here using these words. I know.
I already knew. I saw it. But you can, like, cut off certain plants. You can cut off in a certain place and, like, put it in water, and it'll develop roots after, like, 3 days.
Okay.
But the thing is, flowers take a lot of energy. And people like flowers because they're showy, you can take pictures, but they take a lot of energy from that plant. The plant is not gonna like make new leaves if that flower is there because it's trying to make that flower produce seed or like just be sustained. Like it's taking up all the energy. So you can't clone a plant until you snip that flower off. And that's so hard. And even when like they first pop up, the first flowers I see on these plants, on these little baby plants, I cut off. Because it's not gonna get to where I need it to be unless I take those first flowers off, and that's so hard. So I'm ready to take my pictures, I'm ready to show off. Like I want y'all to see but no, like it's not gonna be like the big plants at the end of the season until I cut those first flowers off. Like it's not time to boast in that yet. It's hard.
Yeah, because you work hard for that. Yeah.
Like you want me to cut this off? Like what?
I remember whenever I was first working out, and like I didn't necessarily see the like physical change first. I saw the scale.
Yeah.
And the scale was just like, oh, you lost 5 pounds. Oh, you lost 10 pounds. Oh, you lost 15. It's like, cool. But then I look in the mirror, it's like, dang, that neck's still kind of, that stomach's still kind of, and it's just like, it's not time to boast yet.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if we're being so honest as Christians, it's never time to boast. And that's the hard part. Because like
that's
Paul,
just like,
Paul,
and I'm not even like a braggadocious person, but I know how it is to like work for something and you want to show it off. But it's not even like for you in and of yourself to just show off because somebody else helped you get there.
Yeah.
So I get that.
And like it's a bit, you said it like somebody else helped you get there. Like, how can I boast in something that somebody else gave me?
Yeah.
And it's just like God gave you that gift, God gave you that talent, God gave you that purpose, God gave you that ministry, God gave you that calling. And then here you are, oh, this is my ministry, this is my thing, It's like, since when was it yours?
Yeah.
Because like at any moment, like, somebody can just be like, you know what? I want that back.
Yeah.
And like, he has every right to take it back because you did nothing to earn it. Like you were just you allowed yourself to
be a
vessel. You allowed yourself to be a willing vessel for the ministry of God. And at any point, he can take that away. But we love to like, oh y'all see what God is doing, y'all see this little thing? Like, are
we
you
say God, but in our head we like,
yeah.
What I done did.
Like I fall so much victim to that because like if y'all follow me on Facebook, y'all know I like to dress. Like, call me ranch because I stay dressing. Anyways, and it's just like it's hard for me because like sometimes I have to like I post my little pictures that I be taking because I be looking good. I be looking good, and then I have to like get off the app.
Yeah.
Because I get addicted to like, oh, who liked it down? Who liked it down? Who commented? Like, and it's like I love receiving that like affirmation in a sense. It's like as Christians, we're the same way. Mm-hmm. Like oh, you said a good prayer. Oh, brother. Oh, Sister Marshall, that was.
Oh, I did. Yeah. I did straighten the words together.
And like, or like you got that Bible verse, or somebody was going through something, and you gave them a word or something, and we're so like quick to be like, yeah, that was me. And it's like the seed is like, yeah, I was the one who grew. Like, you ain't gonna give no credit to the soul. You don't give no credit to the sun, S-U-N or S-O-N. Like,
yeah.
You ain't gonna give no credit to the one who actually gave it to you.
Right.
We're so quick to do that. But when we allow ourselves to like fully rest, like fully place our weight, fully place who we are in God, like you have no room to boast.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, let's say I have a child, and me and the child, like we gotta walk 10 miles. And I had to carry that child 9 miles. And the child walked 1 mile. And it walked the last mile. And it was like, look, Daddy, we did it.
Mm-hmm.
We. And we over here walking in this faith, like having God carry us for so long.
Yeah.
And then we took our little steps. It was like, God, look what we did. And like, God is so loving, and he'll just be like, mm-hmm.
He'll let us have our moment.
He'll let us have our moment. And then, but he'll be quick to humble us.
He gonna remind you.
He gonna remind you.
You gotta come to me for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, cool. Creativity snatched. Yeah. Like, you gotta come to me to get rejuvenated. Like everything is fair game. Yeah. Like, we think it's ours, but like, even when I go to like draw, because I don't draw that often, like, I don't know if that talent is coming back. Like, I have to pray and hope, like, because you can try to draw somebody, and if the measurements not right, they can look like their cousin instead of themselves. So you have, like, I really, like, pray before I do an art piece, because it'd be so long, like, I'm hoping that it comes back, because it's not just me. Yeah. Like, if it was just me, I probably wouldn't even finish, because once I get started, like, because with art pieces, like, there's always an ugly stage when it don't look like nothing. And you just have to fight through it. Like, there is a point in art where it's like, you just making lines on a paper, and you don't know what direction it's going, but you hoping that in the end, it looks like something. Yeah. And, like, that's blind faith.
Trust the process.
Yes, you just have to be yielded.
And a lot of people don't want to be yielded. And like, when I think of yield, I automatically think of like you're driving, you know what I mean? They say you need to get into this lane. And regardless on like how quickly you want to get into this lane, regardless on like, where your destination is, like you have to yield to that traffic. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just bully your way into it, because if you do, that's how accidents happen.
Yeah.
And like a lot of us, we have to to allow ourselves to be yielded in the faith, yielded in what God wants us to do. Like sometimes you gotta be still. Like the people in the yielded lane have to wait for that opening, have to wait for that opportunity, for their turn. And we're so quick, like even like with this podcast, like I'm not like. I'm hoping for something like, big to turn from this. And like, I'll wait my turn for sure. But I'm not just over here like, oh yeah, this is going to be like, the best. Like, no, this is going to reach whoever's going to reach it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
If it reached 50 people, that's 50 people who I had an opportunity to talk to about Jesus. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. But in this day and age that we live in, so many people are so quick to try to get their blessings that they like miss the process or miss the yielding that's required in order to get that blessing. And
we focus so much on numbers where we don't focus on quality. We just want to say, oh, we got this many followers,
Mhm.
but like, who did you actually connect with on a real level?
Yeah.
Like, or are they sitting there? Like, it's
Yeah.
really like a quality thing. Like, how are people when they meet you in person? Or do you just know all these people? Like, what's the quality of the conversations, of the interactions? Like, that's the part that people don't focus enough on.
Yeah. And like the content of what you're actually pouring out is so important. Because like especially in this day and age, everybody feel like they got something to say.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody feel like they got something to add. And it's just like to be yielded is to I have something to say, but I'm choosing my silence. I'm choosing to like not say anything. Like, um, yet again, I'm gonna find the verse for y'all. I'm gonna put it in a little thing where it was talking about Jesus was telling his disciples like, "Hey, you're gonna like whenever you become my disciples and the end time is coming, you're gonna be presented to the courts. Don't worry about what you're gonna say because the Holy Spirit is gonna speak through you. The Holy Spirit is gonna speak through you, but sometimes the Holy Spirit tells you to say nothing.
Yeah.
And like, don't say nothing. Like a fool will be shown how foolish he is when he opens his mouth. Everybody looks smart until they open their mouth, and you see how foolish they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like for us to be yielded. Like man, sometimes I have to like sit here, and that looks like crazy to people who are like in this go get it mindset, and they're just like speeding on the other side. Why is they just sitting there? Why are they not moving? It's just like this is where like I have to be, and like it's yielding is so uncomfortable. Like getting on that interstate process is such an uncomfortable, like especially when the traffic is just going, because it's so uncomfortable. I can't do what I want to do at this moment. I have to yield, and like following the Lord's steps. Like everything may be moving fast, but you have to wait until the Lord says for you to move.
Yeah, everything He gives us are tools. Like our gifts, the resources He gives us, they're just tools. Like, and if you use them in the wrong time and in the wrong environment, they don't have the same impact.
Yeah.
Like if you are looking for a stapler, if I hand you a microscope, that's not really gonna help you. Like when God gives us things, we have to wait until He gives us the urgency to use whatever that thing is. Like even when I think about writing, because I feel like sometimes I feel like it's God speaking through me, and I'm learning the difference of when it's just Dad speaking versus when I have, like when I feel inspired.
Yeah.
But like I know just as much as it is a gift for God, it can be used for bad, and it can be a weapon. Like I have to be careful of that. Like I'll post and delete a lot of times, or even like I'll type out something and be like, "Girl, who asked you for this?" Like no, like leave this in the drafts, like because it's not always like we have control over the gift. Like it's not just supposed to be recklessly used and think that just because it's a gift that every time it's gonna have that like inspiration behind it. Like there are times and places when you use that gift.
Yeah. Like for me, I sing a little bit. I sing just a little bit. And I'm grateful that God never blessed me with the ability to actually sing. Like, black people say sing. That boy can sing. And I'm grateful that He never actually gave me that ability because I would abuse the heck out of it. God know I would. Like every day I'm just hitting the harmonies for no reason. Like, bro, why are you singing that? Like, and I sing comfortably now, like, because I just like to sing. However, I don't try to sing to impress people. I don't try to sing so people can notice. I just like to sing. However, like that's a gift, and like I'm grateful that God gave it to me, but also like He gave it to me in a position. Like I remember a couple of Sundays ago we were talking about the master who gave his servants talents. He gave one servant 10. He gave another servant 5. Then he gave another servant 1. And it's just like I got that 1. Like I got enough. Like I got something. That's it. Now, I'm not going to be like the servant and not use it. Like, I sing for the Lord, and I'm grateful that, like, I can lead worship, and people not like,
yeah.
Like, okay, cool. He can lead us into worship, and I'm grateful for that. But I'll never be like, oh, yeah, I'm finna go on American Idol because this gift God has just given me. I'm finna bless the nations. Like, no, that's 100% pride.
Yeah.
And, like, that's 100% not going to produce any good. People they're gonna turn me away immediately. I ain't gonna lie to you, but I'm grateful that He gave me the gift and the capacity that He gave it to me in, because He at the end of the day He still get the glory for it, Like I know when I'm singing for him, and I know when I'm singing for me. Because like when I be worshiping, my eyes are closed. I ain't looking at nobody else. I'm singing to him, and that's how I know it's for him. But like preaching, you know, I'm dabble in preaching sometimes. You know, just a bit. Sometimes you can get caught up in the yeses and the amens. You can get caught up in the feedback that people are like, you know, pouring out to you. Like, oh, all right now, all that stuff. And it's like, that sound good, but, you know, are they saying that because the word that you're bringing is actually good? Or is that the articulation and the vocabulary, that enunciation, all of those things that you're trying to add to it to make it sound like that you're just this, you know, philosophical and like, you know, deep thing and all these things? Like, no, like, God, I thank you that it's in this capacity that I can use this, and at the end of the day, you get the glory for it. And like that's the purpose of it. Like, you know, throughout my faith walk, throughout the things that I'm called to do, like, God, I thank you for the gifts that you've given me, but I thank you that they all point back to you. Like, I can't take credit for this because it's a gift. I've never seen somebody be gifted a like Ferrari or Lamborghini. Be like, yeah, you know, I got this car. Like, I was given. I saw who gave that to you. What are you talking about? And he's like, so if that person would be foolish to boast in that gift, why are we so quick as Christians to boast in the gift that God has given us and look for the accolades and applause and all of these things? So it's like, man, like, God didn't give it to you for that reason.
And we're not in control over the impact that the gift has. I can't, I've tried to find the clip and I can never find it, but the comedian Lonnie Love, she was talking on the reel about how she knew she wasn't like a Madison Square Garden level comedian. Like she knew she was like a smaller, intimate type of gathering, but she stayed booked.
Yeah.
She stayed on tours, but she knew her avenue and she wrote it, and that wasn't a knock to her. Like she let other comedians have their lane and they wrote it, but she knew that she was a smaller setting type of comedian. And like, I know when I initially started blogging, I was just like green. I was just excited. Like I'm thinking, you know, I'm gonna pop off. Like everybody gonna read my blogs.
Yeah.
Like, that ain't always the case.
Yeah.
You just have to be open for whatever level you're gonna reach.
Yeah.
And if you can't appreciate two people spending their like good time writing you out a comment, what you deserve 500 for?
Come on. Yeah. I remember one time, and like this was a night of like I had got into it at one of my old jobs. I got into it with a coworker of mine, and I kind of flashed back off at her. I apologize later, but in the moment I felt so justified. I was like, God, she just been mean to me this whole time. Like, you know, I had to defend myself. And God sat me down and was like, Helen, you're not as important as you think you are.
We small.
Like you didn't have to do me like that, big fella. Like, and I think like as Christians, like we're so like, we see all of these huge names and these huge stars, and it's just like, oh, I have to be like that in order for like my gifting or my purpose or my faith to be, in a sense, useful. And it's just like, no, like God works through the mundane, and that's okay. Like if your calling is to work your 9 to 5 for the rest of your life, because that's your like ministry, that's your gifting of that. Like I can organize this well, or I can interact with these people well. Like I don't have to. It sounds good to say I don't have to get here, but like we have that desire, like that human nature, that sin nature, to like be bigger than what we actually are. And like, I mean, you even said it, like, you know, you gotta constantly ask God to humble you, because that when you get that little bit of likes, I'm
like, not this girl like negative for real, like what?
And it's just like, Lord, like please keep me humble, because like pride goes before the fall, and it's like, God, I don't want to fall. I'm tired of falling. And it's just like the reason why we fall so much, the reason why we like go through these seasons that we go through is because we're not allowing ourselves to rely on him as we should. Like taking it back to the seed, like if the seed was to just be like, I can do this by myself. I don't need the soil, I don't need the sun, I don't need the water. Like you look stupid right now.
Yeah.
And
that's what I love about nature. It's not forgiving. Like if you don't play by the rules of nature, you're not gonna get your results. Like if we don't water these seeds, like nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like if I go outside and I don't put on no bug spray, I'm getting towed up. Like it's no like level of status where the rules of nature don't apply to you. You're reminded how small and fragile you are every time you step outside.
This is not my pride speaking. This is just my science sickle cell fact speaking. I don't put on bug spray.
I want to know why.
Like, not once in my life have I put on off.
Now I want to see why.
Mosquitoes
What the reason is.
they don't attack me. There was a time where I had a roommate and we had cats, and one of the cats went outside and got fleas.
Mhm.
I didn't know we had fleas or ticks or something like that, something that bites you.
Mhm.
I didn't know we had that until my roommate showed me his leg, and he just was ate up.
It was probably fleas then.
And like I wasn't being bit whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure it's like they'd be like, "Ugh, he got that bad blood." Like, we don't want that. So there's a little bit of exceptions.
Yeah,
However,
for the most part,
you have to play by the rules. And I think that like goes back to like how we walk in our faith. Like there are exceptional people to the rule, to where like they just hopped out the gate
yeah,
and they were just on fire, and
they just got
they just went up there.
yeah.
But for the rest of us,
No,
no,
baby step it, buddy.
baby step it. And it's like I love it because God calls us His children, and not once does He ever calls us His adults.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like I need you to stay my child because my children are dependent on me.
Mm-hmm. And they're moldable.
Yes, yes. Like a child's imagination is one of the most powerful things that a child can have.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're so quick to believe. Like I remember growing up, my dad he was bald, and one day I asked him, I was like, "Daddy, why are you bald?" He was like, I got a special haircut that just made me stop growing hair." And I believed. I was walking around just like thinking that there is a special haircut with some special clippers
Yeah.
that you just get. Like, oh, you want to be bald now? I'm gonna cut you with these clippers here. No other clippers gonna work, but these ones right here, you ain't never gonna have to cut your hair again. And he said that, and I was like, you said it.
That's it.
But like that's how we're supposed to be with God.
Yeah.
To where like He can present something to us to other people would sound so foolish, but it's just like, why would my Father lie to me?
Yeah.
Why would
Just
He
wait on it?
Yeah, like why would He lead me astray? And so it's like if there's things in our life that we like are having to do or places that we're having to go, like trust that He's a good Father.
Mm-hmm.
That He's not going to lie to you, like not my daddy, but like my Father. He's not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, so I follow the monarch migration every year, and it's about to be the spring migration where they come back from Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And as they come back, they actually start depositing eggs along the way to start the next generation. But the thing about monarchs is once they take off, they don't know where their next rest stop is going to be with the flowers that they need. They really just have blind faith to make that couple 1,000-mile journey down to Mexico. They have to they have to forage as they go. And it's like, that's a level of faith to be this small little, very vulnerable insect, and you just take off on your own, and you just expect to eventually find food along the way to sustain you. Like, that's the level of dependence we're supposed to have. There's even a Bible verse about it. I can't spit it word for word, but when he's like, the lilies of the field and like the birds, they trust God to feed them.
Yeah.
So why are we so like, hey, I'm looking at this money, I need to eat Friday? Like, we really want God to like spell it out to the T.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. When He says take off, you go, and you will be sustained along the way.
Yeah. I remember the story of the children of Israel to where they were in the wilderness, and every single day God rained down manna from heaven, and then He gave quail for them to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But He only gave enough for them to last for that day.
Mm-hmm.
And we, especially in this American culture that we live in, we like to hoard all of the things that we have. And like, I got a refrigerator full of food. Like, I ain't never going hungry.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's not the point of you not being hungry. It's the point of you being, what's the word I'm looking for? It just like, it slipped my mind. Like you being dependent.
Yeah.
Yes. You being dependent on Him every single day. And it's like, there is not a single day where like plants or anything in nature like aren't dependent on where they are and God Himself to provide for them. Because at any moment, if He was just like, you know what, ain't no more grass.
Yeah.
Like, what these cows finna eat?
Yeah.
Or like, ain't no more flowers. What these butterflies finna like rest on? Like, He can just take away at any moment. But when we allow ourselves to just be like, all right, Lord, like, give me this day my daily bread.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a prayer that I pray. It's just like, Lord, feed me enough today to where I'm satisfied, but give me a hunger to where I want you more tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And it's just like, I thank you that you satisfied me. I thank you that what you gave for me today was sufficient for today.
Mm-hmm.
But I still need a hunger so I can come pursue you tomorrow.
Yeah, you
Because-
notice like the pots we started with, like they're small. Like I could have came with like my good stuff, but like certain plants you have to start them off in a small environment and let them adjust to that, and then move to something bigger. Like I don't know the term for it, but sometimes when you put them in too big of a pot, like they don't do well. Like the roots just need to be root bound. Like they prefer to be root bound, which is when the roots are like wrapping around each other and like yeah. So like we start off with whatever we need for that level, and then he upgrades us as we're able to handle that. Like maybe he's not giving you what you want because you can't even handle that yet.
Yeah, like how can I give you what you're asking for? What you have right now is not even sufficient for you. Like we had a Bible study where Jesus fed the 5,000, and I love the story because you see Jesus is presented with I think it was like 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, and it's like that's barely enough for me. I like the 2 fish. I can't even eat the 3 piece.
Right.
And barley loaves, those are small.
Like not even toasted. Like you need a toast.
And so, like, a little boy, that was his snack lunch.
Yeah.
And like Jesus, first of all, I really want somebody to break down the faith of that little boy, because I wish a grown man would come up to me and be like, "Hey, let me see your Lunchables real quick."
Yeah.
We gonna feed everybody.
What?
It's okay.
Yeah.
What you talking about right now? This is my food. But the little boy willingly gave up his food. And when they got it to Jesus, the first thing that Jesus did was give thanks for it. The little of what he had, before it was multiplied, before everybody was fed, before the miracle had even occurred, God, I thank you for what I have. And it's just like we live in this society to where it's like, how often, like, we pray, Lord, I just thank you for waking me up this morning and putting clothes on my back. That sounds great. But when was the last time you actually been like, dang, I'm not walking around with like no socks and no shoes on. I have no socks and shoes on right now. But like, I'm not outside in the elements.
Yeah.
Like this. Like, God, I thank you. Like, I may not have the car that I want, but my car gets me to A, B, and back to A.
And
I
it
thank
don't
you.
make noises when it's running. Wait.
We gonna edit that part out because my car made this.
My bad.
Quick side note. I was in a Sonic one time, and I had got something from Sonic, and this dude was like, "Oh, I like the mods to your car. What is that?" Wear and tear.
Not the mod.
He thought I'd take my buffer off or something. I was like, "Bro, that's just wear and tear on this thing." I'm 40,000 miles away from 200,000. This car, I named my car Grace because she is sufficient to get me where I need to go.
Grace been held on a long time.
Grace has been there.
Long suffering.
Long suffering. God, I thank you for your grace. But like there are some days where I just sit in my car and be like, dang, I have a car right now. Because like most of my friends had to give me rides before.
Yeah.
Because they remember a time where I did not have a car. I had to walk everywhere. I remember I worked at a job to where it was literally a 2-minute drive from my apartment, but it took me 30 minutes to get to work every day because I had to walk. It was like, God, I thank you for this car.
Yeah.
Regardless of the noises that it make, regardless of my driver's side window don't let down, regardless of my AC ain't working properly, God, I got a car. It may not be in the best condition, but I got it. And I thank you. And it's like, but you have some people who like are in the places where God has planted them in, and he's giving them enough. Not exceedingly abundantly above all, not that part. But he's giving you enough and you're not satisfied.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, how can I give you more if like this isn't even enough for you. And then not only should it be enough, however, like this is like, even convicting for me, like, are you taking care of what he's giving you? Like, it's not enough that he just gave it to you, but are you treating it with care?
Yeah.
Because if I gave you this and you're not getting it detailed, you're not taking it to the maintenance shop, you're not taking care of it, why would I, like, my dream car is an Audi. Why would he give me an Audi when the Subaru over here sounding like a mountain bike? Like, and so it's just like, are we being mindful with what God has given us? And like that's another act of faith. Like, God, I'm trusting in what you have given me, and that it is sufficient enough to take care of what I needed to take care of. And I'm gonna show you how good this gift that you've given me is by how I manage it.
Yeah. Now, as I get like further into my like butterfly garden journey, I don't plant as many seeds at the same time. Cause I know like whatever I put down, I have to water every single day. Like that takes energy. Like it's not gonna be fun until I see the flowers. But I still have to like get up every day and take care of it. So I know now I can only handle a couple things at a time.
Yeah.
But in my immaturity, that I was just so excited to get to the finished product. I didn't realize how much work it was gonna take.
Yeah.
And even if you pay attention, because like I usually keep up when I start to see certain butterflies pop up in the season. Right now, I'm not seeing the bigger butterflies because we don't have nothing for them to eat. All we have now is like wildflowers. So you're only gonna see like tiny little butterflies that eat those things. You're not gonna see the bigger ones that we expect because we don't have the food to sustain them.
Really quick, how do they know that you have that? Like, how does, like the monarch is like one of the most famous ones. How does the monarch know that you have that specific type of flower?
Well, the monarchs, they're actually endangered. So down south, we don't really have their plant growing wild. It does grow wild in the Midwest, so they can find those fields of it pretty easily just flying over them. But down south, because we don't have it growing wild, we have to intentionally plant it because they are dying out because we don't have that plant.
Yeah.
So, short answer, like some of them, because they follow specific routes. So some of them know certain places that they can find the plant at. They say it's like a cool thing with monarchs. They learn between the generations where to find the food. Like they go back to the same places in Mexico, at least the same area. They say that. And so they might, in the same way, like know where to go on the way back.
Okay.
But they are dying out.
Yeah. Same the monarchs.
Yes. Plain milkweed.
But I think that's important for our faith to like, your faith, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, like, your faith isn't meant for you to be lived by itself. Like, you have to be planted alongside some people. You have to like rely on the generations before you. Now, sometimes there's generational trauma that you got to cut off and let go of. However, like when we allow ourselves to go back to like the roots of Christianity and to see like, man, this is how like they did it. Like if you truly look, like read the book of Acts. Like if you truly want to see how the real church lived, read the book of Acts. They sold their possessions so that everybody can have something. Like I have never seen somebody just be like, you know what? I sure do got 3 vehicles. You need a car? Here you go.
Yeah.
What? Like I sure got a second bedroom. You need a room? Like
We like to show that off.
Yeah. We like to show that off. And they were just like, no, we doing this because like God has placed this on our hearts. But that's what real community looks like. It looks like people are benefiting off of each other. And you like talked about that, like you plant some plants beside each other because like that one plant is benefiting off of what this one plant is producing. And like, this is what you have to be mindful with who you're planting yourself beside. And I am a like huge fan of people talking about like haters and enemies because we really don't have haters and enemies as we think. There may be somebody who don't like you,
but not to the extent of like they ain't a Kendrick to a Drake. Like not to that level. Most people ain't living like that.
Yeah, like we gonna pray for Drake. But
like there are people that just don't jam and that's like life, but like most people ain't like stalking you.
Yeah, they ain't praying on you. Like, one, praying on my downfall is such a crazy thing to me because who hearing your prayers? Because I'm praying to Jehovah Yahweh. Like, if you praying for my downfall, he ain't finna answer your prayer, and anybody else you praying to is smaller than him, so they can't even grant your prayer. So keep praying. Like, they ain't gonna bother me. However, like, it is vital that you plant yourself beside people who are going to encourage growth. And sometimes that looks messy. Like, I don't know, like the plantology, the Scientology of the plants and stuff, what that process looks like. But I know just like as individuals, like your husband is one of those people who some days I was like, dang, I could fight you today. But I thank you for what you've been saying to me because it's hard. But I'm thankful that God has allowed him to be planted in the garden that I have because he is molding me. He is helping God mold me into who God wants me to be. And that's an ugly process sometimes.
Some of the healthiest gardens are messy gardens.
That's a word right there.
Yeah, like people focus on the aesthetic, but that don't mean you got a healthy garden. Like, what them roots looking like?
Come on.
And like when you really pull up something by the root, like that's messy.
Yeah.
Like you done busted up all the ground around it. Like it takes some time for like the rest of it to just breathe again.
Yeah.
Like it's not a pretty process. Most of gardening is not pretty.
Yeah. And we are so focused on the pretty. We're so focused on like, what it looks like, oh, who's gonna say something about it, who's gonna approve of this, and it's just like, oh, you gotta put your SpongeBob boots on and get dirty.
You do.
But like, yeah, it's important for us to be planted by the right people. But then yet again, that's another aspect of like what that blind faith is like trusting that God will bring forth the right people for us to be planted by.
Yeah.
Because like the person who I want to be planted by may not be the person who God wants to be in my life. Like, and we have to be willing to receive a word from unexpected sources. Because like Jesus was in the temple teaching at 13 years old. They're like, whose man is this? Like,
Yeah.
It's a boy.
Who asked you?
But like we're so quick to write people off because they don't look how we want them to look or they don't sound how we want them to sound. It's just like, man, but if this is coming from the Lord, and this is why it's so important for you to know God, not just know about him, but to know God. And like if you know God, you'll know his people. And if you know his people, you'll know like that they're bringing truth to you. That truth may not feel good, that truth may not sound good, but it's for your good, and you have to trust in that. And like I truly am grateful because like, man, those moments to where I was just like, man, this dude is frustrating me right now. It's like out of the heart of what he's doing, like this is God. Like, and I thank you, God, that in this moment, through your servant and you're humbling me.
Yeah.
Like
the real is always gonna have some weight to it. When you think about separating the seed from the chaff, I should have brought some marigolds so we could break them down. But as the flower is growing up, everything is still together and it's in harmony. And that's like not the time for separation because everything's still maturing. But when the seed reaches maturity, you have to separate it from its covering, that unwanted part. And that part, it has no weight to it. It blows away in the wind. So usually when people are threshing wheat, they literally like bang it up against a bucket and the seeds fall and the chaff blows away. Like the real, the necessary part, the part that has value is gonna always have weight to it. It may not look pretty, but it's gonna have weight and substance to it.
Yeah.
And that's how you know, like, this is God.
Yeah.
Everything else is gonna blow away in time.
But do you trust him to remove the things that actually don't have weight to it? Because sometimes the things that look good have no weight. Have no.
Like when it's still bunched together, it looks like it might fill up a cup with the seed and the chaff together. But once you separate it, it only look like a little bit. Like once you remove the stuff that is only there for show.
Yeah. You got a lot of stuff for show. But man, like I love that, like in the blind faith of like allowing ourselves to like just truly trust in God, to truly like follow his wisdom, follow his ways. Like It's gonna get messy. There's some things that you're gonna have to like get cut off. Things you gotta surrender. Things you gotta yield to. People you have to be planted around. People you have to don't be planted around.
Yeah, new environment. Sometimes you gotta move.
Mm. That's a word for somebody, baby. You gotta move. Get up.
Like
but-
some plants, like tomatoes, they have to grow deep. Like they really need that soil of depth. Like you need to be planted in a place that has the depth for you to grow,
Mm.
or you gonna be stifled.
Yeah.
And then some plants don't need all that. Some plants like to stay at the surface. Like it depends on what that specific plant needs. If you give it more than it needs, it's still gonna die.
Mm.
Like giving it more, it's not gonna help it.
Yeah.
You can overwater some plants.
Yeah.
And then there's certain plants like they can take some extra water because they need it. Like a watermelon, it needs water. But there's certain plants I have to forget about. Like an ivy, it hates. Like it doesn't like to be waterlogged. So you just have to know that plant, and God knows our needs. So we can't be looking to somebody else to get what they got, how tall they growing.
Mhm.
That's where they like that's their destiny.
Yeah.
We gotta focus on us.
Man. We just completely abandoned this game.
Ain't played not no game.
We did probably like 5 moves, but like this was such a really good conversation. I feel like
Yeah,
a conversation that like needed to be had. And it's just like, man, moving in that faith. Like,
That's why I say, like, even though it's a blog, like, because it's gardening, it's still ministry. Like, do you
Yeah.
know how many plant references are in the Bible? Like, limitless.
yeah,
So it's like, it's so much you can learn from just getting your hands dirty.
yeah.
So much you can learn from it. So that's why I like it.
So as we wrap up this episode, of course, you already brought like a little bit of your offering. However, if you would have something to offer the listeners and the viewers today, what would that be?
I would say trust God with whatever your ceiling is supposed to be. Like whenever you think you have made it, maybe you haven't. Like just really be open to what God has for you. Whatever environment you in, you work that environment until He moves you into something else. Like that's the point I brought up in the beginning. Like leave an impact wherever you are. We always focused on being at the end of the journey, like being there, like making it. But it's about those seeds you deposit along the way too. So just work whatever environment you're in and be yielded, be open, be moldable. Yeah.
I thank you for the plants that you've offered. I thank you for the wisdom that you brought. Man, this is an offering, and I pray that y'all have a good one. Be blessed.